Check, this should be good. Well, I don't have a joke to start with, but here it goes. Have no fear of perfection, you'll never reach it. That's a quote by Salvador Dali. He was an actor, as far as I remember. But with the use of feature flags, you will reach to near perfect releases for software engineering or like software deployments, while unlocking better customer experience and developer experience. That is what I'm going to talk about. Basically, embrace feature flags, unlock better customer experience, and developer confidence. I am Geshan Manandhar. Hopefully, I don't cover the slides. I am a senior software engineer at Simply Wall Street. I've been a Google developer expert for Google Cloud Platform GD since 2019, Docker captain since 2024. The main point being I've been dabbling with feature flags since 2012. I don't know the math, 13 years ago, something like that. And I blog at geshan.com.np. That's my LinkedIn profile. I'll show that later as well. Let's go directly to the things that we're going to cover today. If you want to go to the slides, you can scan that. I'll start with what feature flags are, go a bit into why use them, how to use them, when to use them, a couple of real-life use cases, and some feature flag best practices, then a bit of how does it enable better customer experience. Similarly, how does it help for developer experience, and some takeaways. So it will be a bit of a jam-packed session. If you blink, you'll lose. So here we go. Feature flags, basically, Pete Hudson on martinpowell.com says that you are able to modify system behavior without changing the code, and then deliver new functionality to users rapidly but safely. So the two main points here being, you can change the behavior of the system, but you don't really need to deploy new code. And the second one is to deliver new functionality to the users rapidly, but still keeping the safety knob intact. If you look into it, like visually, a feature flag would look something like this, that you turn on the chat feature, you start seeing it. You turn on the dark mode feature, you start seeing it, right? This is coming from the Flagsmith website. Now, actually, how many users or what % of users see your new chat feature or your new dark theme? That's where the magic is. And that is the power of feature flags. There are multiple use cases of feature flags. This particular talk is going to focus on the release toggle part of it, like using feature flags to release a particular feature. There are other uses as well, for example, experiments, ops toggles. I'm not really going to go there, but yeah, we can have a chat about it if you want. Let's start with the story, how I was introduced to feature flags, going back, as I said, 13 years ago. The point was, this was for an e-commerce website, a fashion e-commerce website. The website already had cash on delivery and cards, your usual debit and credit cards. And the new feature that was to be developed was PayPal. So we were in a meeting, me, my manager, and the CTO, and they basically joked with me saying, if we lose any amount of money with this feature, it's going to be cut from your salary. Of course, that was a joke, but that's how my journey of feature flag, or me being introduced to feature flag, started, right? So introduction of PayPal. And then while that discussion was happening, basically the lead engineer or the team lead told me, what you can do to deploy this safely is just add an if condition. That says, if the email address is your email address, that's this you@thecompany.com, then you can see basically PayPal on the checkout page, else no one else sees that. And that simple idea was essentially mind-blowing to me, because I had never thought of releasing software that way. This is not strictly a feature flag as such, because a code change would be needed and will be needed to deploy. But in terms of having that cocoon of safety, having that safety net, that was a very novel concept to me, and that is what has stuck with me for how long now, 13, 14 years. Now, going into when to use feature flags, Whenever there is even a slightest form of risk that you think, I think that's a good point to reach out for feature flags. So as I said, like whenever there is any small business risk involved, always reach out to feature flags. They will help you. Similarly, when you add any new feature to an existing product, or especially on the critical path, by that I mean if you are on an e-commerce website, going to the catalog listing page, then to the catalog detail page, then adding something to the cart, and then being able to check out. That's the critical path, right? So if anything changes there, and if there is anything related to money, always make sure that you use feature flags, because it makes it a lot easier to deploy as well as roll back. Similarly, any mid-size or large-size feature that takes time to be developed, so it'll take time to be released, that is another good place to use feature flags, right? Because you don't want a lot of changes accumulating, and then you have a 1,000-line or a 2,000-line merge request or pull request, whatever terminology you use, and then whoever wants to deploy that is scared because it's going to be a big change, and then it might break something, intended, unintended, some regression might happen. So that is also a very good use case for using feature flags. Let's go into the why of using feature flags. Yeah, while that happens, oops. So yeah, let's go back. How much is that? 1.5 year. July 19, 2024, a Good Friday. Someone deploys a security change in CrowdStrike, takes down 8.5 million Windows operating system. Thousands of flights are canceled all over the world. People can't use their systems in places like as critical as hospitals. Basically, it is Y2K coming down in real life on a Friday morning or evening, whichever time zone you were in, right? So that is why you should use feature flags. If there is a risk, let's say if the people at CrowdStrike would have done a 1% release, that means only 85,000 computers or operating systems would have been affected, right? Friday, they would have known it. Saturday, Sunday, they might have worked on it. Monday, probably, they might have fixed it by Monday. Not resulting in 10,000 flights canceled. As I said, like people can't even use critical systems like in hospitals, right? Not only that, after that happened, in 3 or 4 days, their stock price basically tanked. They were at, I don't know, 350 or 370, something like that, and in 3 or 4 days, it came down to 250. By that, I mean there was real, actual money implication. The whole company's value actually came down in just 4 or 5 days because this thing happened. The point here is limit the blast radius, the same thing. Like if someone had deployed it to 1 or even 2% of the customers, 160,000 like operating systems affected, they would have known, they would have enough time to breathe, either roll back, because if there was feature flag, they could roll it back, and then again come to the problem, fix it properly, deploy again, much better outcome. At least their share price wouldn't have tanked by $100 or $120 in just 3 days. Let's go into how to use feature flags. I mean, feature flags are also called feature ops these days, depending upon what technology or what tool you are using. In terms of that, always start small. I think Anima also pointed this out. Start small and then increase. So you could even start with, as I did, a very simple if statement. If the email address is exactly equals to your email address, or if the email address ends in @yourcompany.com, then those users have access to that particular feature. That could be a start. And once you grow out of it, you could start later choosing a feature ops software, whatever that's called these days, like a full-on feature flag management software when you need it, like a LaunchDarkly, and others. For instance, what else have I used? Flagsmith, that I just mentioned, of course, yes. And we use Unleash at where I work right now. So anything like that, and then that should be something you want to reach out to as your next step. Similarly, the point here is not the tool. It's not the LaunchDarkly or the Flagsmith or the any other tool that you have. It's more about the mindset, like focus on the mindset on actually making your software releases safe. The other thing that is probably better to understand here is separate deployments from releases. Deployments is a technical process, right? Whereas releasing software is more of an operational or a business level process. If you can separate those two, that makes it a lot easier to think and reason about features. A bit of code, I'm not going to go into any demo or anything. So here, like a feature flag could be as simple as this. You have a feature flag service, and that just says should limit portfolio analysis. I'm going to go a bit more into this because I work for a company that works with portfolios and stock portfolios. So I'm going to go a bit into detail in this. So the code basically says that if the feature flag is enabled for this particular email address, or that could even be if the feature flag is enabled for an email address that ends in mycompany.com, then the portfolio analysis would be applied, else you see the full portfolio without any analysis, right? Let's go into a couple of real-life use cases. I used to work at this. This is one of the most popular e-commerce companies in Australia and New Zealand, which I think these days has a slogan called "Got You Looking." So I guess you know which brand I'm talking about. The point being, they were mostly selling T-shirts and shoes. For a T-shirt or a shoe, if you sell size medium or large or extra large, all the sizes are 50. For instance, for a shoe, if you sell size 38 or 42 or 47, all of them could be 150, which does not apply for things like beauty products, lipsticks, fragrances, right? For instance, for this particular fragrance, the 30 ml version is $167, whereas the 90 ml version is double of that at $331. So when we did this feature probably took 1 or 2 months easily. And then while we were doing this, we were releasing it gradually. What do I mean by that? So whenever anything was done, it was already on production behind the feature flag, and only the team had access to it, right? And that's how it was developed. And a day came, it had to be released to the actual users, and we gradually did it. We went from 0 to 10%, looked at all the logs, all the alerts, make sure that everything looked fine, and gradually go up. From 10, we went to 25. From 25, we went to 50, 50 to 70, and 70 to, like 75 to 100. So eventually, in a matter of, I think, 30, 40 minutes, we went from 0 to 100. But I guess we were a bit lucky, at least in this particular instance. Either we tested everything like many times before the release day, or yeah, probably we were like everything fell into place properly. Also because anything, like even the smaller changes that went to production, was already being tested by someone who had actually developed it, right? So this was not the first time that particular feature was being tested. And then the release was much smoother than we expected. Same thing, we applied the similar policy or similar way of releasing it to limited portfolios. Like a portfolio could have multiple holdings, and depending upon your plan, you might not see that particular holding, the numbers for it, and all of that. Same pattern here, first released only to the people inside the company, and once that was tested, everything was fine. Then we gradually went from 0 to 10, 10 to 25%, and similar to like 100%, right? But I guess this particular release, maybe it took a bit longer than 1 day. Anyways, the point here being, release it gradually in steps. Probably only the team who is developing it, 7 or 8 people, then go to the organization, and then X% of the customers, make sure that you look at your logs, everything is going fine. For instance, if it's an e-commerce website, make sure that all the orders are coming in through, and like all the numbers look good, the logs or alerts are not blinking at you or shouting at you, and then only increase the % of users that you want to go to. Let's dig into some best practices for feature flags. The first one being like limit the scope of your feature flag. I have seen teams having a flag that covers probably a bit too much than what it should cover. I have seen teams using flags and nested flags under them, which basically confuses the use of feature flags. I think it's better to have a feature flag with a limited scope. The same feature flag can be used across multiple environments, as well as across backend and frontend. So that makes it easier if you need to roll back or if you need to stop. It's just one feature flag. You turn it to 0% from 15%, and the feature is not there to any of the customers anymore. Yeah, this also I've seen in multiple teams over and over again. You use the flag, you use it to deploy. The code has been there for almost a month or even more than a month. Everything is working fine. And then you either forget or you and the team become too lazy to remove the code, right? So this is something that needs to be done once it's there, once you know that you're not going to roll it back, you're not going to need the feature flag. Make a habit of doing the housekeeping, like removing any of the code that needs to be removed. Similarly, having proper access control and audit logs for the feature flags is important. There might be critical flags. You don't want anyone going in and changing it. As well as, let's say, we are humans, we'll make mistakes, and if things happen, then you have an audit log of who did the change when. When you do the postmortem, of course, there needs to be psychological safety. Blame the process, not the person. But anyhow, you still need to know who did what and then what happened to have a log of the things that have changed. Other couple of things that would be good to follow surely are naming conventions. Have proper namings. I don't know, like prefix your feature flags with the team names, or even use tags, the team, or some other things that can be tagged so that you know what feature flag you're touching. So how does this enable better customer experience then? The first thing being, before a feature actually reaches your customer, it has already been tested at least 2 layers. By that I mean the team that is developing it, as well as within the organization, right? So the customer is probably the 3rd or the 4th layer that is actually exposed to that feature. So that helps. Another thing that we used to do at one of my previous employers was a test party. What do I mean by that? That means when the feature is release ready, then we would basically call a meeting 30-45 minutes and invite whoever is interested to come in and test the feature. What happens then is, because you have been inside the team, you have been too close to the feature, you don't see some obvious bugs or some obvious mistakes, right? Whenever people from outside the team come in and test, then they find things that you might have missed or just overlooked. And then they create the bugs in the regular ticketing system, we fix them, and then we release it. I think that has been a pretty good way to figure out things that are not obvious, because you have been in the circle, in that cocoon for like the last 2 or 3 months or how much ever time. And things like a test party really help you reveal any of those edge cases or blind spots. The other good thing is it helps, there is lower chance of the user actually getting an error in this new feature, as I said, because it has gone through all of the testing process. So there is a less chance. I'm not saying there won't be any chance. Even billion-dollar companies, like products of billion-dollar companies, would have bugs. Bugs are normal, but it's just that you might have a lesser chance of end users hitting it. And a good customer experience would equate for a great company goodwill and branding. So, of course, that's how feature flags help you, because you are releasing it slowly and gradually, incrementally, and that's where, if things happen, you at least have a very fast and easy way to roll stuff back. This also enables higher developer confidence, with the first one being like less code conflicts, because anything that's being done, it's continuously being merged to the master or the main branch, and then because of that, there is not a lot of code piling up as open pull requests or merge requests, and that helps because, as I already said, if you have a 1500-liner pull request lying there, you'd surely be scared to deploy it compared to a 50 or a 60-liner merge request lying there. Developers have the privilege to test in production. Even if you test the same feature 3 or 5 times in staging, it's not as same as testing in production, because you don't have the same load, you don't have all of the alerts and everything, you don't have the live production database data. So you could deploy the feature, just be available to you or the team, and then you could actually check in production, make sure that the logs look fine and everything looks good, then only increase the percentage of users. Same thing, once you increase the percentage of users and the load comes in, it might have its own side effects, but at least you had tested the happy path on your own and then made sure that everything looks fine. This does happen. If things go south and things hit the fan, then at least you have a very easy way to roll back. You just go in, you change the values on your feature flag software, and you are back to the same place before you deployed without the need of doing another deployment or any other long processes. LaunchDarkly, yes, one of the most popular feature flag management software, says, 42% of its customers could recover from incidents within an hour, if not minutes. And without the feature flags, this time would surely have been longer. With most things in software, nothing is free lunch. Feature flags surely introduce complexity. It makes like multiple forks of the same code path. One thing that I do generally is I have 2 browsers open, completely different. One user which is inside the feature flag and the other user which is not inside the feature flag, and try to test both the cases just to make sure that everything is running fine. It does make things complicated to test because there are already 2 forks. But as I said, feature flags are not free ones. It also comes with its own baggage. Misconfigured flags can be damaging. I have been guilty of this probably more times than I would like to admit. So yeah, sometimes I feel that this feature has been opened to these 5 users, whereas I had misread or misconfigured it, and this feature was not available to these 5 users. So things like that would happen. Just be more used to the system that you're using, and then configure it properly to get the right result that you want to have. Similarly, if there is a flag or a feature that has to be rolled back and which had a write feature, by that I mean the form was accessible to 25% of the customers, they already had put their data, right? And now you had to roll back because of an error or an issue. So the next day, the customer might just call customer service and say, hey, I had access to this yesterday, and I don't have access to it now. Why? What happened? I mean, there could be multiple solutions to it. You could cherry pick that particular customer and add the customer to the flag again, or like depending on your policy and what you want to do, you could deal with it. Basically saying if you roll back from 25 to 5% of the customers and then there was some data being written, it's not as easy and as smooth as doing other things. Top 3 things that would be good to take away: use feature flags optimally, like use it properly in a way that makes sense. Don't overdo it, but use it when it's needed. Whenever there is a risk, whenever there is money involved, reach for it and use it. Follow best practices. I surely listed a couple of them towards the end, but how many of you have actually used feature flags? Yeah, pretty good majority of the audience. So yeah, that means you might have other best practices as well that we can discuss. Before I move ahead, how many of you are actually identify yourself as software engineers? How many of you would identify as DevOps engineers? Good. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like DevOps engineers, software engineers, even data engineers, feature flag would fit any use case. Even AI-related features, we use feature flags for our AI imports, and yeah, that was very useful. Coming to the main point, feature flags enables better customer experience, and in the process also helps with getting higher developer confidence. I think I'm good with time. That's my LinkedIn profile, and I can take questions.
Are you all right to use that one to answer?
Yeah.
Did I see a hand?
A lot of hands.
Thank you. Have you guys looked at, there's a new standard coming out similar to Open Telemetry, the Open Feature Standard. Have you guys taken a look at that and implementing that at all?
I had read about it. I haven't really dug deeper into it, but yeah, thank you for the reminder. I will go back home and then have a read at it again. No, but I haven't looked at it as such.
Questions? Any others? Yes.
Thanks for a great presentation. So just wanted to ask a question about caching and feature flags because they often work against each other. If you ever worked in a project with aggressive caching where you had to balance needs of feature flags and caching validations, and if you have any tips.
Yeah, I think depending upon what you're trying to do, generally like caches should be set at seconds or minutes, and I guess like usually that's not a big problem for feature flags generally in a read only environment. For writes, yes, I think like for writes you would generally not do a cache. So yeah, it's a balance. It's a very case by case thing, I think, to look at it and see, yeah, do I decrease the cache time or. But yeah, generally in my uses, I have not faced like a condition where I had to choose one or the other. With caches and feature flags, yeah, they have, at least in my experience, they have gone pretty well hand in hand.
I was thinking about the sort of like paid features. So when it might be in there as permanent part of the product, but you have to pay extra to unlock a certain part of the product or something like that. Do you treat that similar to a feature flag, and do those services handle that sort of long-lasting paid feature?
Yeah, that's where I was going. So, come on. Or maybe it's easier if I scroll up. Sorry, give me a second. Am I there or here? Oh, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I guess you are more of a talking. Yeah, probably you are mentioning something like this, the ops toggles, where you would want that feature to be in the feature flag. It could be done, but then if it's a permanent feature, it at least in my head doesn't need to be a feature flag, because in my experience, I've used feature flag mainly for the release part of it. We have a new feature, now it needs to go to production. Maybe it is in the critical path, like the price thing that I showed. It was in the critical path. If anything would have broken there, that means you lose, I don't know, hundreds of orders in hours or in like even minutes, depending upon the traffic. But yeah, if it's a permanent thing, maybe I would test it once, and then once it's good, I would just remove the feature flag. Unless, I would not suppose a plan-based feature would need a feature flag, at least in my head. I don't think it should be treated like that.
Couple more.
Thank you. Awesome talk. One thing I've faced is kind of like opposition from operational people saying, this feature flag might be in the, a hot path. What happens if the feature flag SaaS or service is down? What kind of latency does it introduce? We can't have it. The code's too important. Have you come across those kinds of oppositions or arguments against?
Generally no. Of course, like there will be some latency added to it. That's given. But then, like SaaS feature flag services, they have a very good response time. The other thing that could be explored is using an open source feature flag software within the same VPC or the network, and then you at least have that case of latency also kind of being taken care of, because you are now responsible for the feature flag service to be on as well. So that could be like a trade-off that can be made. But at least in my experience now, I'm not. The benefits outweigh the costs, and that has already that is what I generally communicate. And because as I said, for an e-commerce, if that feature is wrong and you start losing thousands of orders in an hour, that's millions of dollars in question. If not millions, like a lot, multiple thousands of dollars in question. Whereas 5 or 10 milliseconds more in the latency, I think that should be fine. So I think that's a balance. But if I was to have a answer for that, probably explore something like an Unleash, which has both SaaS and open source offering, do it hosted yourself. That means it's inside the same VPC. You can control how big a database you want, how much resource you want to give, and then have that latency within the appetite that you want to have it for.
Is that all? It looks like it is, in which case, join me in thanking Geshan for his excellent talk. Thank you. And just while we do the quick tech handover,